Hello, I'm Carl Euland Helperson, and you are watching Living Green on a Blue Planet. This is a program that focuses on the environment, on reducing our carbon footprint, on the challenges of climate change and climate destruction and loss of species, but also on innovation and healing and working to turn things around. And so we look at things at the macro level, nations, international problems, large environments, and the micro level, you and me, our individual footprints, what can we do? And so we tend to look at things that inspire us, things that give us awe, because a lot of what we cover is depressing. And so we need to remember why we care and why we can't sit and feel sorry for ourselves. We have to get out there and work to be water protectors, air protectors, species protectors. And so we look at individuals who are doing great things. Some are doing spectacular things. Others are doing modest things that make a difference. We like all of that. We look at places, sites, agencies. And so today we're going to look at LC Nature Park. And LC stands for Loving Carol. The Brooks family lived on this land for a long time. This is a land that's in the historic Little Rivers Valley. Little Rivers connected Kikianga or Fort Wayne to Huntington. And you know, there's a large marsh swamp in northeast Indiana and northwest Ohio. But there's also the Maumee watershed that connects present-day Fort Wayne to Toledo, and then the Little River, which connects Fort Wayne to Huntington, and the Wabash River, and the Wabash River to the Mississippi. So this is an important site. It was certainly important to Native Americans that lived here, First Nation peoples. It was a place of portage, a place of trade, but it was also important to the settlers, first with the canal system and the draining of the swamps, but then later in terms of the trains. And so this valley is important. The valley is important to us almost spiritually, because so much of it had been destroyed. We got rid of the swamp, the marsh, because there really was lots of disease, but also it got in the way of farming. And so agriculture is important to Indiana, so we drain lots and lots of wetlands. At one point, Indiana was the #1 source of lumber for the country, but in the process of cutting down that lumber, we've reduced 85% of our woods. Okay, and so if you look at some of the remnants of the Little River, you see ditches that are polluted and straight and have no majesty, minimal biodiversity. And in some ways they were used to protect farmland, get that water out as soon as possible. But what they really do, ditches end up moving the water down so it gets flooded somewhere else. You want rivers because they meander, they filter, they provide biodiversity, homes and shelters, but you don't have that. But where LC is, you can see the valley. To give you an idea of the importance of that particular area, the road that LC Nature Park is on, if you go down that road, you're going to see a number of different preserves from Acres Land Trust and 2 preserves from Little River Wetland Project, which are not Eagle Marsh. Not far from there is Fogwell Forest, and then beyond that is Fox Island and Eagle Marsh. And so this is an area that's really rich in biodiversity. Think of it in terms of wildlife corridors, and so this is where LC sits. We're going to be reflecting on one of the events that happens at LC, but there are 2 big events open to the public each year. In the fall there's Bison Day, and in the spring there's Trillium Fest. And so what you're going to be seeing today is people participating in an event that says spring is here and summer's right around the corner, and look at the beauty.
Memorial Day weekend?
Yeah, it is Memorial Day weekend. I think it's from 10 to noon. Or no, 11.
It's a Saturday morning.
Yeah, it is a Saturday.
Saturday morning.
Yep. So you can check.
Bison and 6
They want your teeth here.
You need to go get a needle. Can you actually go get 3 needles, Jamie? Actually, can you get 4 needles? They should be in the plastic tub over there. Do you need help tying? You can do it now, or you can get your hyphen and do it on your way back.
And that's okay.
So when the Brooks family was living on the land, they were aware that it was a land of beauty, but as they stayed there, they learned more and more about the history, the biodiversity, the geology of the land, and said, you know, this land needs to be preserved. Prior to white settlers here, the land down that road were various preserves of Miami chiefs. So where LC stands, it was the preserve of Chief Longlegs. Up the road was the preserve of Chief White Swan. And so these are historically important lands that are connected or close to other important lands, like the village, the Miami village of Kikianga, or west, the Miami gathering place for not just Miami but other First Nation peoples as well, the Seven Pillars. And so there is a connection to the East Coast, to the Great River, the Mississippi, that connected in this area. So the Brooks family decided that, you know, we need to preserve this. It's beautiful. People need to know about it. It's a tool for teaching people about the history of Indiana. And sadly, Mrs. Brooks, Carol, died, and they named the park in honor of her, Loving Carol, LC Nature Park. And their goal is to educate the public, to preserve the beauty, and to reintroduce environments and animals that were part of the area prior to settlers. So you're going to see a number of environments. There'll be open prairie because they had been farmland. You'll see historic barns that are really beautiful. You'll see woodland, you'll see wetland, and you'll see a sand dune. So that's a lot in an area that's a little over 200 acres. There's a lot put there, including open spaces.
By 1840, you know, they were moving them out.
Right, yeah. All the
But some of
bison,
them
all
got
the
to
food
stay.
was gone by that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, you'll get all kinds of flowers. So we have those, and we have May apples.
Y'all give me a reason to go home and do some research now.
I know.
And I will be back.
There you go.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
This area right here, that was Chief Big Legs, was his reserve. And if you go just another mile down the road, you'll be in Lafayette Township, and that was Chief White Loon. And when they built the addition, they thought, even though it was in Big Legs territory, they thought that doesn't sound very good for a name. But then they knew White Loon was just down the road, so we'll call it the White Loon residence area. So that's how that all came about.
Okay. So the bison that were here originally, were they plain bison or were they woodland bison?
They're plains bison. They actually came from Custer State Park, and there was another bison ranch near Indy that populated our herd. So
How about the original back in the day of the Miamis? Which bison was here? Which species?
probably plains, yeah, because wood bison tend to be more into Canada up that way. Although they do say that there is some intermingling, and it's hard to tell if there's a true bred bison out there. So they might have cow and everything else in there.
Yeah, the bison were gone from Indiana by 1830, and the elk by 1840, and the last wolf was about 1901.
Okay.
Yep, that's our historian there.
We decided to reintroduce animals native to northeast Indiana prior to settlers. They quickly recognized that bison were part of that. We never had the large herds of the out west, but bison were part of the environment in Indiana. And bison had at one point, it's estimated that their numbers were up to 50 million individuals. The earth shook. The numbers were vast. They sustained nation after nation of First Nation people. And they sustained environments, whole environments, all different types of environments. Okay. By 1830s, those numbers had gone from 50 million to 500. Not 500,000, 500. And if you've watched documentaries or read books on the history of the bison or the American buffalo, you know that it was a strategy, that it was strategic, that trains were brought out with hunters. The animals were killed not for their whole bodies, but almost kind of scalped, cut their tongue out. And the idea was that these animals were extremely useful to sustaining Native American cultures. Their fur was really thick and was used for teepees and clothing and tanning. And the meat was used for food. The bones were used for tool making. There was very little there that wasn't used. The brains were used chemically for tanning as well, right? And so if you get rid of the buffalo, then you would reduce and get rid of Indian culture. And so that was the goal. And they got down to 500. By 1910, a number of people were seeing that this is a catastrophe. First of all, it was an ecological disaster because buffalo changed the landscape. The weight of them, the hooves tearing up the soil. It aerates soil. It moves seeds, plants from one area to another. It fertilizes the soil. It provides food for other animals, for predators, and the moving of the soil produces insects that feed birds and bats and small mammals, and so they were important to the whole environment. Just the opposite of what we have today, where you see mile after mile after mile of monoculture farming. Okay. So people saw that, some people, that they were important, and so there were these patches of little small herds, 12 here, 20 there, and then Yellowstone had the largest herd at the time, and there was a plan to protect and preserve the buffalo, and it was successful. And so in Indiana we have wild bills up in Angola, and we have buffalo at Wabachi, and we have buffalo here at LC and a couple of other places. The numbers are in the hundreds of thousands, not the 50 millions, but enough DNA diversity that they are no longer on the endangered list. So that's significant. Okay. They have horns that don't have antlers, so they don't drop them. They travel in herds so that the numbers protect them from predators. The predators would have been grizzly bear and wolves and coyote against small calves or that we call red dogs. But the numbers would protect them. And we have a little bit of a video clip of not a stampede, but a bunch of them running for short distances. Instead of being awe-inspiring, it's kind of cute. And the herd that's at LC is about 35 buffalo, 4 of which are new red dogs or calves from just the spring. The other species that was introduced, so you have buffalo that are the largest mammals in Turtle Island, and then they introduced the elk, and the elk were also native to the area and are the second largest deer in North America. And they're not protected by their large numbers, and so they're protected by their vigilance, okay, and their antlers, and their ability to hide. And so they're harder to see instead of being out in the open fields because they don't care. The buffalo and bison, the elk are oftentimes when people are around in the woodlands behind trees. And so you'll see a little snippet here or there, but you're not going to see them in such large numbers. They also drop their antlers late winter, early spring, and so there's an event at LC where kids go out with their families, and they, instead of doing an Easter egg hunt, they do an antler hunt. And it's pretty impressive. You get an idea of how big these animals are when the larger elks, each antler, not both, but one each, 25 pounds. Can you imagine 50 pounds on your head? They have a spring in their walk when they drop those antlers. And the antlers, the kids don't take them home. They're not sold. They're part of the education center.
Wait to be quiet. Wait till they're stand.
I got the back end.
Yeah, the Elk Lake is up where that big building is. Like when you went to the park, you came and you go right, you
Here, let me give you your bank fund.
This is the
the buffalo, the water buffalo.
Oh, okay.
There's 2 or 3 different kinds of buffalo in Europe.
Okay.
And that's what they were used to. And they saw them and they looked like, they call them buffalo. They're actually bison. And if you call them buffalo, that's okay too.
Because in Indiana, you know what it is.
But they're really fast.
Oh.
35 miles an hour. Usain Bolt is the fastest in the Olympics. He does about 20.
Holy cow.
So you can see you can't outrun a
Yeah,
bison.
just get out of the way. Right.
And they have a warning mechanism here now, but there's 4 of them.
It did nothing.
At
the top of the hill, guys.
Something was wrong.
We're
gonna make it all the way to the top, and we're gonna stop and have.
They've had these guys in like Yellowstone, and 20 below, and they'll turn and face into the wind, and they won't move for 2 days. They can take that. Their bodies, well, they're native animals.
Right, yeah.
They can, and that's why the Indians.
Fat and they use
Indians used all this, the teepees and their dress and their clothing, and that's what they used the bison or the buffalo.
That's what was such a shame when people can just shop them just because the Indians did use the bonesies, the fatties, their skins,
And the reason
everything.
the European settlers, the Americans, whoever you want to call them, the reason they killed the bison is because they wanted to get rid of the Indians. Get rid of the buffalo, this is where their main source of food. Get rid of them, you get rid of the Indians. And me and I who were here, and Potawatomi and all the other Indians, the Iroquois, all the Indians we had around here, shipped them out to Oklahoma and Kansas and those reservations. Now me and I, that's what they put on the riverboat, on the canal, and pushed them out here.
I'm falling.
Yep. So we got rid of them. That's all we did.
Yeah.
It's a sad story.
We ate it. We cut it in 4 pieces. Everybody got one.
So there were about, later on after the Civil War, there were about 6 or 8 different ranches that had bison walking around, and the guys let them stay and kind of kept them over to the kind of out of the way, and that's where we get the bison today. They were able to save them. President Grant was given the Congress passed a bill, and they sent it to his desk to save the bison in the 1880s when he was president, and he wouldn't sign it because he hated the Indians. So, that's so, and of course Yellowstone is one place where we have a huge bison population, and then Custer's Park, where Custer's last stand was, we have a big bunch of them there too. And there's some here. There's a up there in Fremont. He's got a herd of about 150, and outside of Fort Wayne here, just on 24, if you look over and head out of 24, there's another small herd our Amish guy has. So there's little herds around all over the place. And we have about 30 here, plus 4 new ones. So
I've missed
maybe
them
36 or something.
Don't see them.
Well, they marched across the top of the hill here.
I was told they were all down here. Oh, there's a lot of them out here. So I come down and they're gone.
I think they're down.
They saw me coming.
In that far end.
Okay.
But they come out here and graze all the time.
Okay.
We'll see them out here.
Now let's keep walking around.
Hey, have fun. There's lots to see. The Trilliums are pretty too.
All right. I appreciate
Sure.
information.